There we go. We're live.
I feel like I'm dressed like a president today.
So I
just realized that.
I wasn't going to say it when
No,
you
I
walked
said it.
in, but that's exactly what I was thinking.
No chance.
Hello, everybody. Week 28. You believe that? They go quick.
Wow. Wait, what is it?
Show 28.
Oh, wow. I thought you were saying week 28 of the year. I'm like, it's only like
No.
the third week of the year. No, that's crazy.
Of our actual
Time flies when you're having fun, man.
It is, man. It is. We're going to turn things completely upside down tonight. We're going to go to the esoteric crap, the big picture stuff at the beginning.
Okay.
And the reason being is because there's been a couple instant or some current events that I do want to get to.
Okay.
But I heard something in on the way here today, and for those of us that are not from the Pittsburgh area, my apologies, but you'll be able to understand my point here in a second. There is a gentleman online and on the air in Pittsburgh sports radio, Colin Dunlap, who I like. I think he's very frank and to the point.
Okay.
And he just had a monologue, which, again, we don't want to get into the weeds of the Steelers or sports or any of that, but there was something interesting that he said.
Okay.
We are here in Pittsburgh lamenting over the Steelers' loss yesterday. The whole town, if you live in Pittsburgh, like half the town, they're ready to take the bridge every time one of the sports teams loses.
Right.
But Colin Dunlap was lamenting that it's disappointing to him as a 48-year-old man.
Okay.
That there seems to be a level of apathy for excellence in a great portion of the current fan base within the Steelers.
Okay.
Meaning that we've had a team that for many years apparently has been okay with, mediocrity.
Okay.
It seems like that's the standard has been mediocrity.
Okay.
It's because year in, year out, nothing really changes administratively with the team.
Correct.
But they keep presenting like decent, regular season records, but immediately nothing in there. And he had an interesting analogy. And again, we don't want to paint with a broad brush, Rocco, but I wanted to bring this up. Like, what are your thoughts on his point of our younger generations are kind of okay more with mediocrity
okay,
than maybe the elder generations who really are demanding excellence, not just with this instance, but just in the bigger picture. It's like his point is a younger Steeler fan that would think about the team in terms of black and yellow and the whole message about, the Instagram moment of being at the stadium and it's an event.
Yeah.
And in the end, it really doesn't matter as much to them.
Correct.
Whether there's an ultimate goal of excellence or not, it's more about the event. Okay. Whereas fans that have been more established with the team for a long time refer to the team as black and gold and demand, because of their prior remembrance of the team, Super Bowls or long runs in the playoffs. They demand more effort and more results.
Okay.
And it was, to me, and again, it's tough to paint with a broad brush, but it seemed like he was talking about overall society and the difference between millennials, Gen Z, Gen Xers, and baby boomers on the other end too. And I think it's typical of not just of Pittsburgh, maybe all sports in general, but does it also translate into business and personal achievement and personal development and all that stuff too?
I think it's pretty simple in my opinion. I think the older, and again, I'm not meaning to paint with a broad brush, right? Because this is not because it's not everybody. But I think if I'm looking in just generalities and what I see, I think the older generation, excellence is hard. Like younger generations seek comfort. They want to have the work-life balance. They want to be able to work to play. You know what I mean? Like it's
a reward.
They work so they can live. Like a lot of our generation, we live to work, whether that's right or wrong, right? Like to me, like holding yourself or anything to a standard of excellence is hard. Like I try and hold myself to a standard of excellence. Am I perfect? No way. Do I try and hold others around me to a standard of excellence? Yes. But am I more tolerant with others than I am myself? Absolutely. I think from a generational standpoint, at least what I see, and again, I'm not the end all be all, the younger generation, like they're more inclined to seek comfort. And comfort doesn't equate to excellence. Excellence is uncomfortable. Excellence is hard, right? Using the sports and the sports example, like to be that invested in a team and wanting that excellence, like they don't want to invest that much time in it. They want to go to the game, take the Instagram photo. I'm here. Look at me. I'm at the game. Awesome. Move on to the next thing. Go to the bar afterwards. Like people that are diehard fans, like they're there for the sport to watch the team, and they're pissed when they lose. They're pissed when they don't show up. And that kind of translates to other areas of life. Like I look at, like, I don't seek comfort in life. Like I seek things that are hard. Like I like to challenge myself. That's what excellence is. I look at younger generations. They work till 5. Like that's good. Like they're comfortable, right? 2 different standards, I think. Not saying one is right or wrong. I just think they were brought up a different way than we were brought up, right? Like I was always brought up, no matter what I did, be the best at it. Like outwork everybody. That's what I was told. Like just to outwork people and be the best. No matter what it is, do that. The generation behind us, I think we as parents, and maybe the people a little bit older than us that were parents of that generation, tried to make those kids' lives easier. And so they sought comfort. And to me, excellence is difficult. Comfort is the opposite of excellence in my mind. That's how I see it.
Is it fair to say that it could be a culture that might be wrapped up in low expectations?
I mean, I think that's part of it. Yeah. I mean,
it's a broad brush.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard to say because again, you don't want to say people have low expectations. I think different expectations.
Okay.
I think they have, because again, like I know people that are of a younger generation that they're good, doing enough to get by so they can enjoy the weekend. Like that's okay then. Like they want to do enough so they can have fun on the weekend and start back over on Monday. They're not striving for anything above and beyond. Where, I look at life as like, I'm always seeing how far I can push, like it's, and how far I can go and what I can accomplish. So I just think it's just 2 different expectations. They not expect less. They have different expectations from life than I do. Like I get one shot at this. I want to make the most of it. Right. I think other generations look at like, I'm here, like I'm just gonna have fun while I'm here. The expectations are different.
I think, yes, I'm right there with you, but I also believe even for this conversation that Dunlap was having with his audience, it almost seemed like, take the entrepreneurial thing out of it for a second.
Okay.
It's almost like you, as a fan of the team, the younger modern day fans don't hold them accountable for excellence in the same way. If they don't do it, it's like, there's no real, I guess what I'm saying is there's no real demand of excellence from those things you invest your time in.
Because they're not fully investing their time in it, right? Like think about older generations, right? They didn't have as many distractions, right? So they invested their Sundays in the Steelers. Like that's all they had. Now, if you go to a game and you look at the people there, most people are on their phone while they're at the game.
Yeah.
They're not really invested in watching the sport. They're invested in the experience of being at the stadium watching the sport.
Right.
That's the difference. Like, because there's more distraction. I don't think it's intentional. I just think they just don't have a clear focus to be able to do that because there's so much other stuff going on.
So
you're not going to invest a ton of time into knowing the Steelers. And like, I mean, I don't even watch football that much anymore. I used to watch it all the time. I watched it last night because I bet on the Steelers to win the Super Bowl. And I'm like, oh man, if they win tonight, like this $50 bet was $30,000
for you.
Right. Well, for a moment there, like maybe this is it. This is the one. Let me go on DraftKings, like 30,000 to 1 odds. Like, let's do this. Let's see what happens.
Well, is it symptomatic through all sports too that it's just how we ingest sports today, or how the different generations ingest sports today has been changing?
Yeah, I think so.
And it doesn't mean they're not important. They're an important event for multiple generations.
Yeah.
It's just how they're valued, maybe.
Well, I mean, I think when we were kids, like I loved baseball, and I still love baseball. And it was like I watched it. You knew who the players were. I traded the cards. I bought cards. So it was like I invested a lot of my youth in the sport of baseball, like knowing the players, like reading their stats. So that's all. I didn't have social media to distract me. I didn't have other shit to distract me.
Got it.
Like now it's like people don't even do that. Like my son would buy baseball cards. They'd go on like a kick for like a year and then they wouldn't do them again. Like I still buy baseball cards to this day because I still have a thing for it. But there's just a different way of approaching sport now. As a fan is what I mean.
When you drill down, though, does it get down to the idea of excellence, the pursuit of excellence, whether it's personal endeavor or by association with a team that you root for. We both are baseball fans. I've rooted for Oakland for most of my life, and for most of my life, it's been a very struggling franchise in regards to money, very similar to what the Pittsburgh Pirates got.
Yeah. Okay.
The difference is for me is I went into the season with Oakland being a very cash-starved team, and I've watched them find ways through great management and great coaching to not only be competitive, but almost be competitive in the playoffs on a couple of years. But the essence for me as a fan was I loved a season full of winning baseball. I kind of knew in the back of my mind the odds of them winning the World Series are pretty slim, but this team would deliver year in, year out, competitive above 500 baseball. And I, as a fan, was kind of okay with that.
Okay.
But in football, the argument can be made because there's only a small amount of games and each game is so much more weighty. Do we just not have the same patience for mediocrity? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know because I think Steelers fans are just unique in and of themselves in the NFL, right? We're the most traveled fans in the NFL.
Right.
I think that there's a big generational gap in fans, like you said. I do think because it is a shorter season, there's less. Like if you look how the Steelers are. Like if they lose the first two games, people are like, oh, they fucking suck. Their season's over. They win the first two games, like we're going to the Super Bowl. Like because we know that's it's a
big
short
swing
season.
every week from week to week.
It's a big swing. Like with baseball, it's
a slog.
You have 100 some games, so it's like you may win 10 in a row, and
so
you're like, we still don't.
It's so beautiful.
But that's the difference between the sports, right? So I truly think like baseball fans, right? If you're a true fan, like you're invested in the sport. It's a long season. In the turns, it can go up and down so quick. With football, you kind of know what's going to happen after the first couple games, right? You can kind of see the writing on the wall for most teams. Every once in a while, you have a team turn it around, and then so people they don't when they get to points like it's not our season, they write it off and invest their time somewhere else. Like people have a very hard time now investing time in one thing because there's so many other things to invest their time in.
Got it. But isn't it fascinating with all that being true that the NFL and Major League Baseball to a lesser degree, certain entertainment brands continue to, dominate our culture.
Yeah.
But the funny part about it is, like, I wonder about this idea. As we move forward here, does actually winning the game, the conference, the division, the league, does winning championships actually hold as much weight with the public and maybe less weight as every year goes by, being superseded by just being there, the event of it all, the inclusion of it all? Does that hold a heavier weight than actually freaking winning?
Yeah, I think. I think if you ask all the fans in or whatever they call the stadium now, Heinz Field,
Acrisure,
called Heinz or PNC Park, right? I would say 75% of them are there for the experience. 25% are there that actually care about the outcome.
Wow. Definitely.
They truly care about the outcome.
In baseball, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, baseball. Like, I have tickets to the Pirates. I'm not even a Pirates fan. Like, I just go for the experience. It's a fun. It's an event. It's a fun. Like, yeah. I mean, I like to watch baseball.
Yeah. So
when the Red Sox are in town, I go and I'm invested in the game. But anytime else, I'm just like, yeah, I'm there. I'm gonna watch. I like to watch a good game, but I'm not invested in the outcome.
What does that say? Isn't that fascinating, though?
Well, it says to me that I've got more priorities that are more important than being invested in
does it outcome. But does it also say, though,
like, here's the thing, the outcome of a sports game has no impact on my life. If the Steelers win the Super Bowl or not, it changes nothing in my life unless I bet on the game and win some money.
Right.
Like literally. So I'm at the point in my life where if it doesn't affect me positively, I'm not going to invest a ton of time or mental energy into it because I have other things that are more important to invest my time in.
Yes. And I'll get that. I think that's probably, if you drill down with most people, that's probably the case.
Yeah.
But hardcore fans might not in the short term think of it that way.
Sure.
But in reality, what you just articulated is the truth. But it really speaks to it speaks to the idea that was said to me 20 years ago that studio wrestling is having a larger and larger. This said to me 20 years ago, or 25 years ago. Watch, Eric. Studio wrestling is going to continue to have a larger and larger influence on your major, legitimate sporting events.
Okay.
In terms of the culture, the fan presentation, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it at the time. But as I sit back and I look now, player celebrations, less emphasis actually in the end on who actually wins or loses. It's an event. Not really worried so much about the ins and outs of the game, but all the Taylor Swift going to these Kansas City games begins to be just as important as seeing Mahomes complete a pass. It's like we've now usurped the actual game. Doesn't mean that the game's not important in our culture. But the essence of what the competitive nature of the event doesn't hold the same weight. Maybe
history repeats itself. Look at the Roman gladiators. Like they went from just gladiators to then having to have entertainment to keep the crowd entertained. Like after you see so much killing and brutalizing each other, like what else do we have to do to keep the people entertained, to keep them at bay, right? Because if you keep the population at bay, they don't look at what the elite are doing. Like entertainment's kind of the same way. I'm not saying that's the case, but
interesting.
You keep the people distracted and just keep them entertained. They're not looking at all the other shit going on in the background. Like Roman Empire, like that's where it started. The gladiators. Here we are, football. Okay, like we got to start doing more shit because people are starting to get bored and distracted. They're going to start looking at other things.
Interesting.
Like that's how I look at it because it's really a big business.
I think it's pretty much you've just explained how the Pirates have existed over the past 30 years because the idea is to make money.
Yeah.
But I said this 15 years ago to my first Pirate game after a long absence. And I looked around between innings and all this mania going on.
Right.
This is like 15 years ago. And I remember I looked at my father-in-law at the time who was with me at the game, a man of very few words. And he looked at me and he's like, and I go, it's like a mini Kiss concert between innings. It's like they're trying to bombard your senses.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to like, the traditional break between innings when we were younger and you look at the scoreboard, you talk about strategy with your friend.
Yeah, it's not how it is anymore, man.
It's just
because again, I think one, and again, this is pure speculation. I think today we have access to more information than we ever did at our fingertips, right? So I think they look at, shit goes on in the background in sports, in organizations, in culture that they don't want the masses to know about. So they know if the masses have too much time on their hands, they're going to start looking at things we don't want them to look at. So how do we keep them distracted for the most time we can? Because think about that. If people are literally in the Pirates game and there's nothing going on between the innings, and people are going to start getting pissed and talking about how fucking bad the Pirates are, and why is the ownership like this, and why don't we fucking overthrow them? It's going to be like stupid shit like that. Instead, like, let's dress up people in pierogies, give them names, make them race, keep a score, have the fans bet on them. Then next inning, we'll shoot T-shirts or hot dogs out of a fucking big cannon into the crowd. And then we're going to do something else.
Have game shows.
So every inning, we're going to have something. So when the game's not in play, they're not able to really see what's going on.
And I think all of that is a direct reflection to the cell phone, to the smartphone.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can almost look back at before the iPhone invention.
Yeah.
The pace of the sporting events, the breaks and all that were not the same.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything's fast paced now. Like there's stuff going on. Like even the Pens games, like shit's going on between every inning or every period, excuse me, like shooting cannons with T-shirts everywhere. I got hit with one like when I took Melina to the game.
Well, they make an event about the Zamboni rolling around cleaning
or
the
ice crew or the ice crew.
Yeah, it's a whole event.
Yeah, like they hired people to like dress up in like outfits and clean the ice. It's like, how about just clean the ice? Like, why does it have to be an event? But that's really it. I think they just want to keep people distracted. That's kind of politics too. Like politicians, like they keep people fighting, so we're not looking at what is actually happening.
So okay, what a transition. He just
segue.
That segue so seamlessly too. Like you know what you're doing here.
I mean, listen.
All right, so Donald Trump wins with over 50% of the Iowa caucus. I mean, I don't think that's a big surprise. I was surprised that he got over 50% though, and it was poorly attended because of the weather. But
I wasn't surprised.
You weren't surprised at over 50%?
Who was going to compete with him?
Obviously not these three. I think that Iowa caucus pushed Vivek.
Yeah, he's out.
Well, he's obviously going to support Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
I mean, I watched the speech, and I appreciated it because he was like, this is honesty. Like, we didn't get the surprise we wanted.
But
and
numbers are the numbers.
Numbers are numbers. I'm going to support the only America First candidate. So good for him.
Yeah, and the other two are probably going to do the same thing. I guess I'm not talking about this as a educated Republican political strategist, because that I am not. But apparently, from what I read, New Hampshire's a big thing, and if Haley and DeSantis perform poorly in New Hampshire, they're going to be left no choice.
It's over. Yeah.
It'd be a lot cleaner if they would go early and the party would coalesce around the one candidate.
Yeah, you would hope. I don't know if that will happen. I mean, I just don't think they will, because they're setting up their political future. Like, if they bow out too early, they're going to be looked at differently. If they just, go when the time is said to go. You know what I mean? Like, okay, there's no chance of us winning now. Let's just get behind the candidate. That's how I see it.
Something really was made very apparent to me over these last 24 hours that probably hasn't been apparent to most people, but I just have not been paying attention to it.
Okay.
And again, not making a judgment whether this is right or wrong. And by all means, we want you, Rocco. I don't like to speak for him, but I'm guessing he'd feel the same way I do. We want you to vote for who you're most comfortable with.
Yeah, right.
It's your vote. You do what you want to do. We're just here sharing opinions, ideas. I've really missed how, or not been cognitively aware of how the Democratic Party's messaging, primarily the Biden administration, Biden political message, has been to really lump and demonize an entire section of society. You always hear MAGA, 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 but I never, over my head, not paying attention. But when you sit and really think about it, in my lifetime, when I go back and look, do I ever remember a candidate taking a large swath of the opponent's supporters, lumping them all together, and then demonizing them?
Yeah, no.
I don't ever remember that in my lifetime.
No.
And I step back from that. I mean, really intellectually try to step back from that and look at that. I can't see how that has been actually tolerated in such an uber sensitive society that we're supposed to be living in, where every group has uber sensitivity of criticism or anything else. There's been a candidate who has taken a swath of his opponent's supporters, called them this acronym MAGA, and demonized them. Like, how is that literally flying under the radar as being okay?
Because the people that are doing it are the ones that are the sensitive ones. They're not attacking the sensitive ones. They're it's the sensitive ones throwing the attack. That's how I see it, right? And again, that's not a political statement, whether left or right. It's an observation. It's like, and it's funny. Like, I was watching something earlier, and they gave a good explanation. It was Tucker Carlson was like in this debate with the Turk. I think I can't remember what his real name is, but he has a talk show on YouTube, and
what's his name?
They call him the Turk. That's his nickname, but I can't remember his name. But they were talking about, and he was saying, like, we should be. Tucker's like, he's like, I'm not afraid of Trump. He's like, you know what you're getting with him. Like, is he like some politician that puts on a front and then in the background is doing all this crazy shit? No. Who he is when he's giving a speech or tweeting is the same guy you're going to get anywhere you meet him. He's like, that's why I'm not afraid of him. He's like, is he the perfect candidate? No. Does he make mistakes? Absolutely. Does he say stupid shit? 100%. But you know what you're getting. And he made the point. He's like, I'm not even afraid of the federal government. He's like, because the federal government is in such disarray that they can't even get their shit together. He's like, what I am afraid of is corporations. He's like, I'll give you an example. He's like, Google. He said, Google has 20,000 engineers right now making $200,000 to $500,000 working on the search algorithm. He's like, no one knows what the search algorithm is. That can change an election. He's like, that's what people aren't talking about. The power these corporations have. And I took a step back and I'm like, it's fucking right. Like, if they're building this search algorithm and no one knows what it is or how it works, they can literally manipulate, if they want to, everything I see. Of course. Like, that's where the real power lies. And that's what we're not talking about. So we're so focused on being afraid of Trump or hating Biden when it's like either one of them in the White House. Like, the federal government's so fucked up anyways. Like, what's going to really happen? We need to start looking at these corporations and the shit that's going on, because they can truly, I mean, Google controls access and the flow of information. And if they have some nefarious intent, they can make decisions for all of us. They can
Right.
sway an entire population if they choose to.
Right.
That's the scary part.
Right.
Like in the fact that like we spend so much time attacking the other political party is stupid. We're not. And again, I think that's the corporations are paying money to the politicians to get people to fight, to distract what's really going on in the background.
Yes, I will say everything. I echo everything you're saying and buy into it all. The only caveat I will say is that there is a long history in this country of conservatives never falling in favor with media in a large scale.
Sure. Okay.
And I don't think that's changed here. You know, conservative thought or any amalgamation of moderate to conservative thought, I'll lump that in there too.
Okay.
It's never fallen in favor with the bulk of American media. And I don't know why that is, but at least for the last century, you can go back historically and look at the 30s and 40s and 50s. I mean, conservatism was the heartland of America, but when it came to the media, in terms of like your New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, they really never fell in favor. The candidates never did.
Okay.
Not that the candidates couldn't lose, they could lose or win, but in terms of the messaging on the major networks, and it continues today.
Sure.
And that's where I think that's the danger that I see. Like, case in point, this ran through my head, Rocco. Like, okay, Biden's message is that MAGA and Trump and Trump's minions, he actually used that word in a recent speech, minions, is all radical. It's radical, a threat to democracy. And I step back and I go, you're an 80-plus-year-old guy who has let the most radical elements of your party, everything from sexualization of children and trans this and everything, the radical moments within your party, you've brought that to the forefront, and you've unleashed that on our culture, and you're okay with it. How is that any more radical than a conservative's view of the world, right? They're just different views.
Sure.
But here we are using these adjectives like radicalism. It's like, it's all just policy.
Okay.
Right? You can argue the merits of it, yes or no. You like it or you don't like it, but Biden's view of the world is no more radical than Trump's view of the world, and vice versa. But for the president of the United States, my point was to label a group of individuals in the country, a large group of individuals who happen to support his opponent, who he's obviously trying to persecute right now through the justice system, and label them as evil is something I don't think we've ever seen.
No, but they get away with it because it's exciting. It's sensationalism. And that's coming back to the media point, like where you're talking about how conservatives don't get the media attention because conservatives are conservative by nature, right? Like, it's not exciting. It's basic fundamental American values, right? There's nothing exciting about it, right? It's just
it gets bastardized.
That's what I'm saying. But think about it. Like our country was founded on religion and certain fundamental values, order, which are not exciting things to talk about, right? If we live in a completely orderly society, everybody's following, being good human beings, there's nothing to talk about on the news. Like, no one watches good news, right?
Great
so
point.
The other side is like, well, let's radical this and let's change this and let's fight for this. And then it creates sensationalism. So the media has something to talk about. So if you really boil it down to that, like, think about it, like, not saying one set of values are right or wrong, right? But if you look at conservative values and left-leaning values, a lot of them are the same, right? They're just articulated differently. It's when they take the very far left ones that are more exciting than the far right ones. Like, there are far right values there are far values on both sides.
Absolutely.
Right? The far right is
Absolutely.
just far more boring than the regular right values. The left is just far more exciting.
But they're both very intolerant.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But it's like, we look at it, the media looks at it as like, yeah, like, let's get behind
that
this
sells
side.
copy.
That's all. I mean, when you truly boil it down, media is not nonprofit. They're for-profit companies. They have to make money. How do you make money? You get people's eyeballs on your show or your page. How do you do that? Sensationalism. People don't want facts. They want stories. They want spin, right? No one wants to hear that 2 + 2 = 4. They want to hear these two motherfuckers got in the street and they were fighting over 2 + 2 = 4. And one person said it was 5 and one person said it was 6. Another person came in and burned them both down. Like, they want to hear shit like that. None of it makes sense, but that is like, we're all going to watch and listen to this. Like, They don't care about the facts. They just want to see the story behind it. That's how I see it. I mean, that's truly what media is. Name one media outlet that is purely fact-based. Left or right.
Doesn't exist. I don't think it's ever existed.
No.
In terms of like the news as we know it, which is being sold by a multimedia company through the airwaves, going all the way back to the inception of the radio and the television, even in print. You can go back to even print probably, hundreds of years ago.
Yep.
It was an idea that could be monetized.
Yeah.
And thus comes any kind of slant.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I just find it interesting that I go back to the original point of this discussion that President Biden is taking a large swath of the public and demonizing them, labeling them as radical and dangerous. Not the man leading them, the actual people. These are his constituents that he supposedly, as the president of the United States, is supposed to be governing. I've never seen that in all the. Now maybe I'm missing. Maybe Clinton did that. Maybe Bush did it. I don't remember ever a candidate for president taking a swath of America and labeling them a big swath, millions, tens of millions of people.
I also think Biden is someone they can't control. He's a little bit kind of just does what he wants. Like you get him off script, like he's going to say what the fuck he wants. And I think that's where we are.
Well, they're really in a tough situation then.
I mean, they've been in a tough situation. I mean, have you seen him?
Yes.
Like, have you heard him speak? Like, they're in a tough situation.
All right. Well, we're going to revisit it again. Approaching the end of January.
Okay.
I'll go back to my original question I've been asking for 4 or 5 months now. You have the belief that you just can't really see him being the candidate.
There's no fucking way. There's no way.
And I am there with you in spirit. I just don't see the path that unwinds to. I still kind of think he thinks he's going to run. I think that every time you see him go to a microphone, it's a shit show. But someone has told Joe that he's going to be the president of the United States.
Yeah.
He's going to be there.
Poor guy.
Or he's going to see it through.
I mean, I don't see how. I mean, again, taking politics aside, taking whether you are a Democrat or Republican or independent, taking all that aside, when you look at the man, no human being in my mind can literally look at that person and say he is cognitively competent to run the free world.
I agree.
I'm not saying that Trump is the better candidate. I'm just saying that guy should not be doing it. I feel for him. He's an elderly man. He's lived his life in politics. He's served his country. I get that.
He used to be a very moderate Democrat.
Correct. But he's at a state in cognitive decline that it would not be in the country's best interest to have him for 4 more years.
It's not in the country's best interest now, I will say.
No,
regardless of policy.
We're here.
Regardless of policy.
We're here. We can't do anything about it.
Absolutely.
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 I think my 10-year-old daughter would be a better candidate, I think, than him, because I just don't think it's all there. And then the fact is we know he's not making the decisions, but we don't know who is. And that's the scarier part. That's the scarier part. Like I said, at least with Trump, you know what you're getting. You know you're going to get a fucking wild card. You know he's going to say what he wants, but you know he's the one making the decisions.
Bingo.
With Biden, we don't know who's making the decisions. So you voted for someone that he's not even making the decisions.
That is a great.
So you don't know who you actually voted for.
Point. We've not talked about that. That is a great point.
This is the truth. I mean, think about all the people that voted for Biden. They honestly think that man is making the decisions that impact the world.
They can't be.
They can't be. So they voted for.
They didn't care that
mystery.
He wasn't Trump. Like
they said anybody can make the decision other than Trump. But again, they have no idea who's making them. And that to me is the scary part. It could be these corporations we just talked about because they have money in all their pockets. We don't know. No one knows.
Well, last week we just touched on it, and I know it wasn't really on your radar. Did you happen to see more as it's unwound over the past week about the defense secretary being out for that surgery and not giving any notice?
I mean, again, like if you're the defense secretary,
that's my point.
And you're out and no one knows, like, is that a fucking big problem? I'm pretty sure it is,
especially in what's going on in the world now. But ultimately, the fact that even put him aside for a second, that the president of the United States didn't know, and then once he was informed, there's no real urgency within the administration that we've been told as citizens that was a mistake, it was a wrong thing to do. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We got none of that. It's like it's okay. It's we're going to move. Let's move on.
Yeah, it's bad optics, definitely. It makes us look weak as a country. We can't even get our own shit together in the administration. The countries, I feel like, are laughing at us right now.
All right, so again, talking in generalities, it's kind of necessary. You've got all these people that are in their mind know they're not going to put up with this Biden stuff anymore.
Okay.
And you have all these people over here to think that whether it's not exactly what they want, maybe, but it's better than the alternative. So you have all these Trump supporters that know they're going to vote for Trump, and all these Biden supporters that they know they're going to vote for Biden. And now we have this group of people in the middle. How, as we sit here today, 10 months out, 9 months out of the general election, how big of a group is that now, the undecided? How big of a group do you think that is right now?
Larger than it was in 2020, I can tell you that. I think so. Because I think there's a lot of people that were the not Trump voters that are like, we fucked up, but we don't know what to do. So I think there's a lot of undecided people there. I don't know how much larger, but it's definitely larger than it was in 2020.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
So what methods do you think over the next 10 months are these candidates going to use to try to grab that vote?
Unite the fucking country. Like, that's what we need. Like, someone needs to just talk about positive shit. And how do we unite both sides?
These two guys won't do that.
Well, if they had a good political advisor, someone would tell. Like, that's the one thing I liked about Vivek, even though he dropped out. Like, he was always talking about trying to bring the country together.
Yeah.
Like, how do we do that? Like, he was tolerant of other people's opinions. I've watched interviews with him, like, head on with someone that had a complete, like, I saw him this interview he did with an atheist, and he respected the guy's opinion. I'm like, I gave the guy credit. Like, and the guy wasn't combative with him. They had it. That's what we need more. Like, have discussions.
Yeah.
And that's how we solve problems. So I think the next president's very important, because we are in a time of economic turmoil right now. I think we're in a time of just unsettledness, if that makes any sense. The next candidate really has the opportunity to bring the country together, because people want it. We need it. We all crave it. I think most of us are tired of the bullshit. Like, I think we're tired of a lot of these things that are being forced upon us. I think people just want to live our lives and be happy and respect one another, but not be forced to believe or agree with one another. And if we had a candidate that was tolerant of everybody, but said, hey, we don't have to force opinions of one on the other, but we can tolerate each other very well, that's what we need. I think that changes the outlook of the country going forward. I don't know that either of them will do that. Because I think Trump is the type of scorched earth guy. He's like, I'm a one-term president. If I win, I'm going to fucking drain the swamp and burn down Washington. Biden's going to be like, I don't even know if he's going to know where he is if he gets elected, if he's in the candidate.
Yeah, to me, it's like, if you dislike both people, you're going to certainly have some policies that you like and dislike from both of them. But if you actually don't, because naturally in today's society, personality means way more than it actually should.
Oh, I agree.
In life in general, right? The optics of personality has much more weight in society, probably than really it should if this society.
It depends. In certain areas, it should have that weight. Other areas, it shouldn't. Politics, it should have some weight, but not be the most weighted factor.
But we live in a very, we live in a society that does seem to put a lot of weight on the fluff and not the substance.
I agree with that.
So if you look at both of these individuals and you don't like either one, what are you left to really look at? Well, I guess the only thing I can look at, you would think, would be policy and all that. I would hope that's where we go. I think if that actually happens, I think Trump wins handily.
I'd agree.
Not really sure that's going to happen.
I think if there is a time where it will happen, it will be this election, because I think people are seeing how bad the policies are now. Like, just things like people are having a hard time. It's costly. Like, there's just, the world has not been the same. So I think people, even though they won't admit it, I think people crave the Trump policies. Like, I really think they do. I think there's a craving for what it used to be. Like, gas was under $2 a gallon.
Yeah.
Like, food costs were down, interest rates were down. Like, we were thriving. There was no wars. Everything got flipped on its head in the past 3 years.
Yeah, there was a article I read, I think it was this past week, that said that Memorial Day is a big day for voters in a general election year, because they look at gasoline prices and then they start to reflect on where they are in their life during that weekend. Like it's just a symbolic thing. Like, where am I? What is it better than it was 4 years ago? So, gasoline trending down now. I don't know if that's representative of us in better times or not. I'm in an industry where interest rates have just been decimated, the real estate industry. So I just think there's a lot of pocketbook issues right now, which you would think would lean in favor of the Republicans going into this election.
You would hope so. And again, I think, look, I think we all can agree that Trump will probably be the nominee on the Republican ticket. I think Trump has a good opportunity to try and bridge the gap, and not like, if he can just pull back from the attacks and just try and be above them and just unify the country, I think people will vote for him, because I think they know, whether you like him or hate him or you despise him as a man, you can't argue with the policies he put in place. Maybe you don't agree with every one of them, but if you look at the majority of the policies, we were better off then than we are now. Let's just be real. To the average American.
Here's a question. Is the average American in 2024 sophisticated enough to put their personal feelings aside and vote based upon their policy agreements?
I think people will vote more based on their pocketbook than their policies. That's what I think.
Okay. Do you honestly believe that pocketbook issues will usurp personality in 2024? Think about us as a group now of citizens in this country, in our current culture.
Yeah. I think it can. I'm not saying across the board, but I think it will in some instances. Like I hear people complain about their pocketbooks. I hear people complain about how much it's changed. And these are people that I know were Biden supporters. They're not talking shit on Biden. They're not supporting Trump. They're just talking about like how bad things are right now. So in my mind, like, these people are intelligent people. I know these people, and I think that they will look at it. They won't tell you they vote for Trump. They're voting for what was. They're voting for a better position, not the person. They're voting to get out of the shit we're in. Like, people voted not for Trump last time. I think people are voting not for where we are this time.
General talk about algorithms in social media, because I've been fascinated that I don't know what I have done to butcher my algorithm on both Facebook and Instagram, but I have not seen one advertisement for any politicians, not here in our county, in Allegheny County, not for our state, not for the. So is that across the board, do you think?
I don't think they're advertising yet.
You're not seeing it either?
I don't think they're advertising yet. Like, they're not going to waste the money now. It's too early to advertise.
But we're in the middle of primaries.
Doesn't matter. I mean, think about it. The primaries, these aren't the ones that necessarily matter right now, right? They're only going to advertise where they matter. Like,
you're not seeing anything on social media?
Because, I mean, think about it. You have to raise money, raise a candidate. Why would I spend millions of dollars on ads right now when we know the attention span of people? They run ads 2 weeks before the election. They're not going to run it months out. There's no way. It's a waste of money.
Yeah.
I don't know the TV commercial I saw last night on TV. Watching the Steelers game, couldn't tell you one of the commercials I watched.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you if it was when I see political commercials, couldn't tell you who they are unless I'm paying attention.
So we've not talked in detail on these shows yet about AI, but as each week goes by, it's going to become more and more, I think, a topic of conversation in society in general. So invariably, we'll be talking about it. Do you see any concerns from what your knowledge, which is significantly more than mine, of AI? Do you have any concerns about this coming election and the integration of AI right now?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I don't know how they would integrate or what. I mean, AI is always a concern. It's a powerful tool. It's a powerful thing. There's always a concern, right? Just the videos that come out, like the deep fake videos that people use for AI.
I've seen a few.
Like, there's ads that are running like on TikTok and Facebook that are like celebrities that literally look and sound like them. And if I don't know any better, I would think that's them. Like, hey, I'm giving away all these free things. Like, put in your name and email to this form and I'll send you, a free pan. Like, I've seen Taylor Swift like doing this shit. So I'm like, the only reason I know it's not her is my daughter's like Taylor Swift. So I've seen her enough to know that's kind of not how her mouth moves. But if I don't know her from Adam,
it's close.
I would be like, that's fucking Taylor Swift giving away free pans. Let me sign up for this shit. Like it's scary. Like what can happen? I don't know how they can use it to manipulate things. But again, who knows? Like I feel like have elections been manipulated? Maybe. I don't know.
That was my next question.
Like I don't know. I feel like if they are being manipulated, it doesn't need to be that sophisticated.
Right.
Like it could literally be like what people claim they did, like in Georgia, just like dumping ballots. Like AI, I think AI would complicate it if you're trying to manipulate an election.
Do you think the losing party of this upcoming election will accept the results and move forward?
No, no one does. No, I think we're not with these two candidates. If Trump and Biden are the two candidates, and assuming Biden is a candidate, if Biden loses, they're not going to accept it. If Trump loses, it's going to be stolen again. Even if it's not, they're not going to accept it. We're past that. I don't think.
So how do we ever move forward then?
Get candidates that are cordial and understand decorum in politics and can graciously lose.
How do we as a country present an election system to our public that our public can believe is fair and honest?
That's a large question. That is a lot. And I don't think it starts with the system. I think it starts with the people in the system. You've got to change the people in the system to get people to believe that the system is not corrupt. Until you get rid of corruption in the system, you can't introduce a new system to say, oh, it's not corrupt, when all the people in it are corrupt. Because they're going to be like, well, they just put it together to make us believe it's not corrupt, so they can just keep preserving power. I mean, again, like I said, if you got down the two presidential candidates that were cordial and gracious losers, and one of them lost, yep, I lost, then I think you'd start shifting back to people believing, okay, this person's not complaining. There's election tampering. There's fraud. It was stolen. Okay, maybe we are getting back to some level of sanity and security in elections. Whether that's the case or not, I think that'll just make it more believable and more palatable to people.
I mean, Mitch Romney's probably the last one who was that way.
Yeah.
Because Clinton wasn't, and then Trump wasn't.
Yeah. And Mitt Romney definitely was a gracious loser. I think John McCain was too, when he lost to Obama.
Well, I'll be honest with you, like everybody before Mitch Romney was too.
Yeah.
I mean even Gore and Bush, I mean, there was always arguments about the hanging Chad in the Supreme Court.
Law school during that was crazy.
But in the end, I mean, the way it was handled was with a lot more decorum, ultimately in the end, than.
Yeah, I mean, 2016 was Hillary Clinton, the election was stolen. Then 2020, Trump's election was stolen. Yet, so it's like we've got to get people that can get back to, I lost. I'm okay with it. I wasn't the best candidate. People didn't think I was the best candidate. I didn't campaign hard enough. It wasn't stolen from me. I wasn't good enough. I didn't get the votes. I think if we get back to that for an election cycle or two, I think you'll start reinstituting people's confidence in the system.
So it is about the personalities recently with these people.
I think the personalities are doing damage to the integrity of the system. Like, I don't think personalities should be above policy, right? I think the personalities are having an impact on people's view of the integrity of the system. Because people that are staunch Trump supporters, they believe, yep, it was stolen. He says it's stolen. It's fucking stolen. That dude's smart. I believe everything he says. It's stolen. People that are Clinton supporters, same thing, right? When none of us really know what happened.
Yeah.
Truly. I think it's really, that's what it boils down to.
The thing that cracks me up a lot that I see, and I've been saying this for many years, it's a lot of liberal minded people always think that a good portion of the Republicans are brainwashed easily by their candidates. But when you look at it, there's a blind allegiance to candidates on both sides of the equation over the years. I mean, it's not, one party doesn't have the monopoly on blind allegiance.
No. And I think, I mean, look, when I was younger, I was blindly voting Republican just because I just felt that's what I had to do. And that's just, and I wasn't really looking at the issues. Now, as I've gotten older, I look at the issues. I still lean conservative, right? But I still look at the issues, like what matters to me the most.
Right.
Like when I was in college and out of college, I'm like, yeah, I'm a Republican. Just vote straight ticket Republican.
Yeah.
Didn't even care about anything else. Now it's a little bit different.
Well,
right?
a good swath of the Democratic parties, with especially the union, the union segments have been telling their membership to do that for decades.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Just pull the Democratic lever and walk out.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that as growing up in a small mill town here
Yeah.
outside of Pittsburgh. I mean, that was what we were told to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you know, one issue voters always get a bad rap, but to me, at least there is an issue they are aware of.
Correct.
And that's there's this start of sophisticated thinking there when it
point.
comes to elections, right?
Yeah,
as opposed to just, you know, my parents were always a Democrat. I always vote D because my parents were, and then they walk out.
Yeah.
At least the one issue voters got that issue.
Yeah, they know the issue they're voting for or against. That's it. And I think that's a good start to correcting the system somewhat. Like, even if we had a bunch of one issue voters, at least shows there's something that matters to them.
Correct.
And I think we need to encourage that. Like, you don't have to know every issue. You don't have to like
what matters most.
Yeah, like you don't have to like everything about a candidate. Right. I don't like everything about Trump. I don't like everything about Biden. I'm going to vote on what matters most to me. Right? I want to vote for a candidate that I know will impact me in the most positive way. Impact me, my family, my business, my employees, my clients. Like, that's what I'm looking at, truly. That could be a Republican. It could be a Democrat. I don't know. Yeah. But it's going to be, I look at the issues now.
My father used to say when I was younger that he would look at a candidate as being a short-term movement. Like, when I go in and vote for X, I might not like that person, but I got to look at the short-term movement being presented on both sides.
Yeah, I agree.
And whatever short-term movement is more in alignment with my philosophy, that's the way I'm going to go, regardless whether I can't stand the person or not. If it's the movement. That's never, because believe me, I've had to hold my nose many times in the course of my life and vote because it was the better of the two movements in alignment with my philosophy. And I think sometimes personality usurps that with most Americans, as opposed to like, where's your philosophy? Are they more in alignment with what you actually believe?
Yeah, and I think, and I think again, like we've gotten to a point in society, and this is what I hate. We've become a large portion of society looks at everything that's wrong with America.
Yeah.
Like everything that's wrong. They want to complain about it. Well, we don't treat people right. We do this, we do this, but they don't look at what's right about America. Like, I always ask, like, would you want to live anywhere else? And people will say no. I'm like, then why are you always like, no country's perfect. No man is perfect. We need to get back to celebrating why America is fucking America and vote for the candidate that supports America. That is the one that sees all the good we have
and shows people they love.
Right. And understands and embraces the bad. Like, we can't fix what happened in the past, right? It happened. All we can do is learn from it and move forward. But we still always have to come back to, we are America for a fucking reason. We are the world's superpower for a reason. And if we keep arguing and fighting within, we're going to destroy America. And then we're not going to be that superpower anymore. We're going to be just like everybody else. And Americans, we're not built that way.
Right.
We need to get back to understanding we can have different viewpoints, right? You can believe one thing. I can believe something different. You can tell me you're X. I can tell you I'm Y. I respect you. You respect me. Just don't tell me I have to believe your X, and I won't tell you you have to believe my Y. That's all we have to do. And I think America starts to right itself. But we are so apt to force an opinion or an issue upon someone else down their throat because we think we have to win. We think you have to agree with us. And that's not how the world works. And we need to get back to normalcy in this country and get someone that understands why America is what it is. I love America. I'm proud to be an American. Are we flawed? Absolutely. Would I want to be anywhere else? No fucking way. I'm an American through and through, and I want a candidate that looks at it the same way.
That is good. I keep thinking about that phrase that goes, the whims of a few must not proportionally affect the lives of the many.
Right. Exactly. And that's what's happening.
We've kind of flipped that around, and we've got to realize that's not a great way to govern, great way to run our society.
Yeah.
But that's correctable. I think that's correctable. And I really think that comes down to being more considerate of our fellow citizens in their rights and their philosophies and their views, and understanding that we need not be emotionally charged by other people's viewpoints. That's their life.
Right.
We need to be solid within our own life
Mhm.
and respect each other and move forward.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Well, my friend,
Yes.
we never really
Another
got
week.
to all the
That's
current
all right,
events,
man.
but they weren't really that heavy anyways.
Yeah,
LeBron
right.
James pushed a fan. Big deal.
Oh, well. Trump won Iowa. Cool. Move on. Next week.
All right, my friends. Thank you all. We'll see you again next Tuesday night.
Yes, absolutely.
We're out.